Good morning, and thank you for joining us. This is Dan Frumley, Director of Non-Traditional Educational Programming with the Tennessee Department of Education, and I'm joined today by Jackie Jacobson and Aaron Christian. Today we're just going to have a real brief webinar, and this is going to be in place of a pre-conference call for the upcoming monitorings for neglect and delinquent programs in juvenile detention centers. A couple of housekeeping things before we get started here. If you wouldn't mind, just in the chat box, we want to make sure we have everybody accounted for. If you could just type in what school district you are with, and then also just please make sure that your phones, or if you're using your computers for sound, that they're muted. As we go through the presentation, please feel free to stop us at any time to ask questions that you might have. You can unmute yourself and just ask a question. Since it's a small group, that should work. Or if you'd rather type into the chat box, we'll either respond via chat or stop and answer the questions that way. And thank you all for joining us. Okay. Again, just our regional map here. That'll be working with you. If you have questions that come up after this, please feel free to reach out to your regional consultant, and they'll be happy to help you out. Again, here's our contact information. Following the webinar, we'll immediately send out a copy of the PowerPoint. We'll also be recording the presentation as well, and then we'll send out a recording of the presentation as well. So our purpose today is just to talk about the upcoming monitorings, what to expect before the monitoring, what to expect during the monitoring, and what to expect after the monitoring. So the purpose of the two monitorings that we do, when we think about the monitorings we're talking about the federal monitoring for Title I-D and Title I-A neglected, and then the state monitoring for the juvenile detention centers. With the neglected and delinquent programs, we are required to monitor those programs, evaluate those programs once every 3 years. So we try to do that when we come out for big on-site monitoring through the Division of Federal Programs and Oversight. If you do not bubble up within those 3 years, then obviously we schedule a standalone visit to come out and complete that monitoring. The rules around the juvenile detention centers require that the State Department monitor the juvenile detention centers. It does not list a time frame for that. So for starting out, we have decided to monitor them every year for the first 2 to 3 years to just really get a good sense on how the programs are going. It helps us to identify what technical assistance might be needed and make sure that we have a good grasp of how those programs are working. So the purpose of the monitoring, obviously, the compliance is one of the things that we're looking at, compliance with state and federal laws. We also like that it gives us a chance to highlight some strengths of the program. We use that to give feedback in different areas. We actually have some of the programs that have been highlighted speaking in our upcoming conference in a panel discussion. It helps us to identify areas for improvement, what additional technical support is needed. I think it gives us a good chance to gather feedback from the districts and facilities on what's working well, what's not working well, and areas that we might need to look at making potential changes in the board rules or in the state law. So pre-monitoring, so everybody should have gotten an email that was sent on September 9th letting you know that you have been scheduled for monitoring and letting you know the date of the monitoring. Again, I'm going to highlight this a couple times, but there are two different monitorings that are occurring. There's Title I-D and Title I-A neglected monitoring, which is the federal monitoring. And then there's also the JDC state monitoring. So most of the districts have just been selected for one or the other, but some might have been selected for both just based on the cycle there. If you look at the bottom of the email that you received, it should explicitly say which program is being monitored, whether it's the JDC or the Title I-D or Title I-A neglected. If you have a specific question about that, please just email your regional consultant and they can clarify that for you. Documents. We'll be sending out a agenda that'll PowerPoint after the
Thank you. I've got it.
We're getting a little feedback there from somebody talking. If you just make sure your microphone or your phone is muted there. Yeah, we'll send out an agenda to everybody. If you could fill that out prior to the visit, send that back to your regional consultant. That'll help us to make sure that the monitoring visit goes smoothly. And then we'll also send out a preparing for monitoring checklist, which will just give you some hints, some clues, some things that you have to think about prior to going into the monitoring session. The big change for this year is that the monitoring document is going to be an e-plan. So if you remember last year, we were able to send out a Word document that had all the list of all the questions, and we typed into that document and then sent you a copy of that document, and all the evidence was reviewed on site. The big difference this year is that everything is going to be embedded into e-plan. So I'll talk about that a little bit more here. This will help us in that all the documentation, most of the documentation will be uploaded beforehand into ePlan. I think this will help the visits to go a lot easier so that we're not running through a checklist with you guys. We'll review all the documentation beforehand. That way we can just come with any follow-up questions that we have. And I think this will help to speed up the monitoring process and make it more efficient. We understand that when thinking about ePlan, especially on the juvenile detention center side of things, not everyone that is a juvenile detention center point of contact has access or uses ePlan on a regular basis. And so we are doing a pre-recorded webinar, which we're hoping to have available by the end of this week, that will give you step-by-step instructions on how to access ePlan, how to walk through ePlan, how to upload documents into ePlan, to make you comfortable with that process. So again, it'll be a short pre-recorded webinar. You can go through it step by step, and it'll explain everything to you. If you are already in the role of a federal programs director and are familiar with ePlan, I think it'll be pretty intuitive, and you probably won't have too many questions. But that being said, after reviewing that webinar, if you need technical assistance from one of us, need us to hop on a WebEx or a phone call or even come out to the district to help go over this step by step, we're happy to do that. We know that this is a new process, and so it'll take some getting used to. But ultimately, I think you're going to find this a lot more efficient. There's less back and forth with emails, especially when it comes to documentation, making sure, oh, did you guys get this or did you not get this? Everything will be right there in ePlan, so you'll be able to see what's been uploaded and what hasn't, and what that report looks like. And then again, we'll be available for that technical assistance piece. So again, we'll have a more in-depth webinar explaining everything step by step, but an important piece here is to access the monitoring instrument, users must have appropriate roles in ePlan, and those roles can be the LEA authorized representative, the ESSA director, or the IDA director. If you are not one of those three roles, then you'll choose the monitoring update role. And I'm just going to look at Erin and confirm that that's correct, and she's our ePlan guru. And then the completed forms can, for each user, you email those to eplan.health@tn.gov. And Erin, we're sending this form out afterwards. This form is, the form is there on you. Okay. So districts contacts must submit the ePlan user access form and receive access at least 1 month prior to an on-site visit. So if you're coming up next month, go ahead and get those forms in. I'd make an asterisk to try to get that done this week. Again, if you need any help with it, please feel free to reach out to one of us. You have to have access to ePlan in order to upload the required documents. And the uploaded documents, we are asking for those to be due 3 weeks prior to the on-site visit. Again, we know that some of you are coming up here quickly in October. If you need an additional week, please just give us a heads up. We're happy to work with you guys on that because we know that this is a tighter time frame. And here's how the forms are accessed in ePlan.
Yes. So what you're looking at on the screen is actual screenshot from what you will see when you pull up ePlan. TDOE resources is a file that you do not even need to sign in for. This is available for everybody, so you can do this step without having to log in or anything in the beginning. You can go to TDOE resources, which is the front, the very top screenshot, and then the second one shows that under user access forms, it's that first form is the one that you want to do. And when you click on that, this is the form that you will get. You can print this out or electronically fill it out or however, and then you will submit this form once you've checked the monitoring update role and get it signed by the appropriate people. You will send this to Melissa Brown.
So the procedures for the on-site monitoring, another change for this year for some of you is that all the monitoring will take place on-site at the facility or facilities. Last year for N&D, I think we had started at the district office and then moved over to the facilities, and we found that we were only at the district office for 10 to 15 minutes, and so we felt like it might just make more sense to go ahead and start at the facility. If you have a facility that doesn't have appropriate space for us to meet or not enough room for us to meet, that's okay. Just let us know. We can work something out. We can do the visit at the central office and then just go over for a tour afterwards. We ask that there's a private designated space plan for the interviews. And from TDOE, there will be at least 2 members and up to 4 members of the department who participate in the monitoring process. For the majority of them, though, we do expect it to just be 2 members. So for the JDC monitoring, the required participants are the point of contact for the JDC, for the actual facility, and then the JJ point of contact for the school district. You guys are welcome to invite any other individuals that you would like to have participate in the monitoring. Many people have chosen to have their IDA director involved for the special education sections, and that's perfectly fine. Federal programs director if they're not already involved, or the teacher or the attendance supervisor. And again, it's appropriate to invite whoever you see fit to help answer those questions. For N&D monitoring, it would be the N&D coordinator for the district. Again, a lot of times that is the federal programs director, and then the N&D coordinator for the facility, so whoever the point of contact at the facility is. And again, just like with the JDC, you're welcome to invite whoever else would be appropriate to help answer the questions. Interviews, we give ourselves a generous amount of time. I don't anticipate it taking as long this year as it did last year, so the interviews will take approximately 1 hour for N&D and 2 hours for the JDC visits. Again, those are generous time allotments, but we want to make sure we have enough time. So copies of all required evidence must be uploaded to ePlan. So again, we're asking for that 3 weeks prior to the visit. If you need a little extra time, feel free to reach out to us, and we're happy to work with you. And then for the JDCs only, the copies of all the educational service plans, those will not be uploaded into ePlan. We'll review those on site because they're going to have confidential student information in them. Another new piece for the JDCs this year is that we do plan on doing student-level interviews, and those will take place at the facility by 2 members of the monitoring team. And then at the end, they will tour the facility at the conclusion of the monitoring process. Following the monitoring, the NEP team will review the documentation and interview responses and submit the results to the Federal Programs and Oversight. Sorry. Share. Okay. Hopefully that helps out with the screen there. And then once we complete the review of the submissions, a monitoring exit conference will be held via WebEx approximately 2 to 3 weeks after the visit. And the districts will have electronic access to the monitoring results in ePlan after the exit call. The district will work with the assigned NEP coordinator to close all findings and or corrections needed by the assigned due date, just like last year, and then follow-up documentation will be uploaded into ePlan this year. So last year, I think we had it sent via email, and again, to make things a little more streamlined, we're going to have everything uploaded into ePlan. And then districts will receive an email containing a post-monitoring survey link. Again, our contact information, all this information will be sent out afterwards. We're here to help you guys prepare for it, so if you have questions, if you need us to come out, especially and walk through the ePlan section of it, we're happy to do that. Again, we are going to be recording a webinar after this that'll hopefully be ready by the end of the week to send out to everybody with explicit instructions on how to access and use ePlan. So I want to pause it here and see if you guys have any questions. You're more than welcome to unmute yourself and speak on the phone, or you can type into the chat box and we can respond to any questions that way. Okay, if you wouldn't mind, before you hop off, if you could just type your name into the, or your district into the chat box. That way we're just sure that we have everybody accounted for. We want to make sure that we know which districts participated today and that you get credit for that. Again, I don't see any questions coming through, so we'll go ahead and conclude the presentation. Again, if you have any questions after this, or have a more specific question that you want to email one of us, please feel free to reach out to us. And if not, we look forward to visiting you all in the upcoming months. All right. Thank you all so much. Bye-bye.